Wow, I'm sorry, you just blew my mind, man.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad.
And here's my mate.
What is mate? Remind me again, because a lot of people have told me about it. It's like is it a cocoa drink? What is it?
It's actually a herb. I think it's originated from Argentina, but we drink it a lot in Syria. And it's basically like a like green tea, but the taste is way more bitter. But yeah, it's kind of like green tea, but it has like 10 times more of this bitterness taste, and it's like a little bit way more stronger, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Fuck, I'm using your words, man. Now I've watched a lot of tutorials.
Copyright strike incoming.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's cool, man. Make it a thing.
Yeah, I think you should, by the way, make it a thing, like it's like, I don't know, a banner of you with like
merch,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, caps and t-shirts and all that. Yeah. So yeah, Ollie Music, it's good to finally meet you, well, face to face.
Yeah, same, man, same. Yeah. Too bad my stupid laptop isn't broadcasting the thing, but yeah, face to face.
Yeah, let's say that. Yeah. Maybe. Well, let me give you some time to maybe introduce yourself. What you do here on YouTube. You also have a channel that you do lots of tutorials. I'm sure a lot of my viewers know about you, but for those who don't, maybe you can just give a little bit of a background as to, your different take on music production and your kind of goals with your videos on your channel.
Yeah. Okay. So to make it quick, I've started my I'll just go with my YouTube, and if you want really about my background, we can talk about that later on. But I've started my YouTube channel with my Virus A videos because I thought there isn't enough tutorials about the virus, and I really loved that synthesizer, and my goal actually was just to fill this gap where there's no Virus A tutorials. And then I thought to myself, okay, maybe let's start adding some software tutorials and just show people my take on it, actually, because I've learned synthesis on that virus, and I think I always think, like, if there was a virus in front of me, what I'm going to do. It really sounds cheesy because, the virus is like the psytrance synthesizer. But yeah, that was the whole idea behind it, like fill in the gap and then just show my way of doing things, because I think it's inspired by this hardware. And like, there's always this like, I'm trying to replicate this, the virus feeling of it. And in a nutshell, that's what I'm trying to do with the whole YouTube thing. Like, just my take on things.
I think it's particularly interesting, though. I think it's cool because I think with the older virus, like the Virus A and that kind of thing, they were pretty limited in what they would allow you to do. So as a sound designer, you had to think a little bit out of the box to push beyond the kind of capabilities of the synth and stuff. So I think, a lot of the time, what makes a good sound designer is limited tools and being able to apply things that you've learned with limited tools in, for example, like a software space where you have not so limited tools, and then you can kind of stack up these ideas that you've learned, for example, like filter frequency modulation and that kind of stuff. It's something that is quite common in the hardware world, but you don't see it often applied in the software world. But then, bridging the gap of the ideas between the two, I think, is particularly interesting. So it's cool to hear that you kind of carved your teeth on the virus A and stuff like that, which was I would consider it a pretty limited synth in terms of like what's available now in terms of virus TI and Serum and Vital and all that.
It is. It is. And actually, this is something I love about the Arturia MicroFreak. You know, it has this limited thing to it that makes it really interesting and exciting to use. It's like these things that actually makes you think about, okay, you know what, maybe I'll use the velocity as a new random modulation because I don't have a sample on hold. I don't have a lot of sample on hold LFOs or something, and you know, you use it a lot, and thus, you know, you'll, as you said, you'll start just thinking out of the box, and limited synthesizers really excites me. Like, I don't know, I love them. I think
particularly for me as well, that you mentioned the MicroFreak, a lot of the time in my sound design, I've relied on the effects and that kind of stuff. For example, in Vital, the first thing I do when I open up a patch is I go and I put on a nice sounding effects rack. And then I often don't even have to go to the oscillator. It kind of sounds good already. But the cool thing about the MicroFreak is there's no effects. So you have to kind of get it to sound good from the source. So it kind of forces you into a different way of thinking about things, which I think is it's the key to kind of learning everything, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. I totally agree, man. I totally agree. And again, just to finish on the subject, another thing I love about Sylenth 1 too is that it shares the same limited structure. You know, like you have this basic subtractive synthesizer architecture about it, and you know, you just start playing with it, and yeah, magic happens when you just don't try to do FM and all those crazy stuff we have right now. You know.
Yeah, I think when you're kind of when you're limited, you kind of start to think about like how you could, for example, with Sylenth, creating FM using just an LFO that's sped up real quick or whatever, and then having to tune it to the frequency and that kind of thing. So there's ways around it, and you don't really think of these ways if you have all the capabilities already at your disposal. So I think that's the powerful thing about kind of learning on more limited tools, I guess.
So to every watcher of this, to every viewer of this video, go play with limited synthesizer. You'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, my two favorite hardware synths are the SH101 and the TB303, just because, like, no matter what happens, whatever you do, it'll always sound good coming out of that thing. And it's because they've kind of limited it to a point where they've chosen specifically, this is the envelope curves that you need. You don't need anything else. You don't need, it's this will give you a good sound. So yeah, it has its limitations where you can't do stuff like FM or whatever, but you're always going to get a good tone out of it. So being able to play around with those and learning about like distorting things in different ways and that kind of thing to create different tones and stuff, and layering things and stuff, I think is very important, rather than just like FM from B and then bandpass filter.
Totally, man. Totally. But by the way, here's a really nice little story about FM from B. I do a lot of music with a friend of mine called Kusmu, and we've actually released a track recently. And the thing is, there was this time we were, at my place, and we were like, okay, you know what? Today there's no FM from B. Okay, we won't do any FM. Like, it's every sound we have to make shouldn't have FM in it. We can do pitch modulation, but no FM, like no audio range FM, if that makes sense. And actually, it was one of the best like call-up sessions we've ever made, because you really had to look for the other effects you had in that synthesizer or whatever we were using. It's been a while since I forgot what we've made, but you got the idea. Just try not to FM, and this is another thing that helps a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah. For me also, it's particularly those kind of sound design sessions where you kind of like set a rule. For me, one of the biggest breakthroughs was a session where I said no filters. Like, so all of the kind of harmonic change in the sound has to be done via wavetables or, distorting a sound more and more, and that adds harmonics in a certain way and stuff like that. So that for me was also a big breakthrough in learning how to kind of like filter sounds, but not using filters, like maybe at a stretch, like an EQ or something like that, but trying to create the sound from a ground up where you have this fundamental and then slowly adding harmonics, or distorting it in different ways to create this kind of rich harmonics, which I think was particularly interesting. Because so much, I think, as sound designers, we rely on filters. It's actually one of the things I've discovered about modular synthesis as well. One of the big there's kind of two schools within modular synthesis, West Coast and East Coast. And East Coast is kind of more traditional, like we know from subtractive synthesis and that kind of thing, where it's a source sound that goes into a filter and that goes into a VCA and then out into some effects. But like
that's it,
the West Coast side of things, they think about things completely differently, like building harmonics, like additive synthesis, so that you can sort of start from, because obviously if you take a saw wave and you put a low pass filter on it, you're basically reducing a saw wave back into a sine wave. But if you take a sine wave and you add, with additive synthesis, you add the harmonics, you're doing the same thing, but in the opposite direction. So it's using that idea where, a filter is removing sounds and a wave folder, for example, is adding sounds and that kind of thing. There's ways kind of to think about things out of the box. And that's when I started discovering these kind of methods, is when I kind of limited myself to like no filters, And another one as well was no delays. And then I started finding out ways of creating delays with other effects that, I guess everything is kind of based on a delay in a molecular sense of when you look at DSP. But, to say like no traditional delays, and then you start, turning a flanger into a delay or something like that. And like, those limitations really start to push you out of the box, I think.
Totally, man. Okay, first of all, I have to try this filter thing, man. You're talking about it, and right now I'm just looking at my synthesizer and I'm like, okay, what I'm going to do now, So yeah, totally. I love this idea. And speaking of delays, recently I've started hating the 1/8 dotted classic delays. I mean, like, not even the 1/8 dotted, just delays in general. I'm like shifting towards using reverbs. I know we're not totally talking about exactly the same thing, but it's just, I've wanted to mention this about delays. I don't know, just these times I'm just hating them. I don't know why. So there's just a little bit of delay, and most of my sounds goes through a reverb or something. I hope that made sense. Just I'm getting bored with the delay sound, and I need to find something new.
No,
so maybe
I absolutely agree.
Could be a nice idea.
I absolutely agree. Because also like for myself, I often use the delay as kind of like a cheap trick. If I had a very simple lead line, if you just put a delay on it, it kind of fills up the space. But now I'm trying to think of things like from the ground up. If you write a melody line maybe in 1/8 dotted and you repeat at certain times in the melody, you can kind of emulate the sound of a delay, but with the actual components that are creating
not a delay.
Exactly.
Maybe you can play with the velocity or something just to make it sound like I don't know, a little bit quieter, or I don't know, maybe mangle it with some effect with the velocity or something. You got the idea.
Yeah. And also another thing that I've also really enjoyed doing lately is like, in a transition, you'll have like a build-up lead that's like going, and then it kind of like delays out at the drop where you'll have like the 1/4 dotted. Instead of actually doing it with a delay, I'll just chop the audio and then duplicate it every so often beats, and then just filter it downwards manually. And so when you listen to it, it sounds like a delay, or you can pan it left and right if you want. But the bonus of being able to do that is you can then rise the filter up at the next transition, and you kind of have control over each of these hits. So you can create like a rhythm out of it by adding extra hits as the thing rises up and stuff like that. So I've started doing that kind of stuff where you have more control over each hit in the delay, I guess, when you're creating it from scratch. But yeah, I think I also have started to realize that just slapping a delay on everything, it kind of fills up the space too much. And then you kind of don't have space to play around with other atmospheres and that kind of thing.
Pretty much. I actually really love your approach, like getting this is what I love about psytrance. Like you're getting in control over everything. It's like getting really nerdy. It's like controlled chaos. I love that. And I actually have to try this too. Like it just gave me 2 nice ideas. Thanks, man. Yeah, I'm gonna try because I think like the possibility, especially it's been like almost a year. I'm working almost fully in audio, and it just changed my life. So mixing what you've just said, your trick about the delay, with all the audio tricks you can do, I think it'll just open up a whole new sea of possibilities. Yeah, I'm just thinking about what I'm sorry. Like in my head, there's Ableton right now. I'm just thinking about it. Yeah, I'll add that. Yeah.
Well, even on on like a professional audio level, it's a trick that I've seen quite often, but I never thought to apply it to, for example, like a lead line where recording vocals, for example, you will often see the mix engineer will offset a channel to the left and time it by 1/4 off. He won't use a traditional delay. He'll just duplicate the channel and change the time, and then do the same thing on the right, but like with a different time. And creating these delays like by hand then gives you the ability to EQ things and filter things up and down. And it's something that I've seen like pop producers do on vocals and that kind of thing. But then it like dawned on me like, oh wait, that's great, because then you have control over each of the elements in the delay.
Everything,
and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's super cool techniques. But I think it's like when you start to force yourself out of the box, a lot of the time we have all these tools and we kind of get this choice paralysis, I think it's called, where you've got so many options that you almost don't know what to do. When you start removing some of those options, you'll start to see like that's when creativity really starts to kind of like take place.
Exactly, and now we just got back to the starting point with the virus and its limits.
Yeah, exactly. So you said you've been working in audio full time for about a year. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your background, like how you got into music production, how you got into psytrance. Have you always been into music? Like, do you play instruments? Tell us about you. Another thing I wanted to know, is your name Ollie, or are you into skateboarding?
Oh no, actually, that actually no. My name is Sami, by the way.
Oh yes, of course. Like, yeah, of course. So where does the name Ollie come from?
Okay, I've never knew about the trick Ollie in skateboarding till recently. Actually, like I think it was when I came to France. I came to France in like 2013, back then I was living in Syria and we don't have this skateboarding, let's say, tradition. So, I didn't know about the Ollie thing. I was into football when I was a kid. Wait a second. I think we call it football for everyone, right? Like there's 11 players for each team. It's not like American football or something.
Basically soccer.
Traditional stuff. Yeah. See, so I was into soccer, and because all my friends were into it, and because I wasn't that good, so everyone used to put me as a goalkeeper. And by time I've started loving the German team, and I've wanted to be like their goalkeeper, called Oliver Kahn. I think it's pronounced like so. And Ollie is actually like a remixed version of Oliver Kahn that stayed with me since I was a kid, actually.
Oh, that's super interesting.
That's where Ollie comes from. And I still don't know how to play soccer, so I've never been as good as him. Yeah, but like when you're a kid, all of your friends are playing soccer, and you're just like, I want to be in the gang, so you do it. But yeah, I got the Ollie thing from it. And musical background, I've actually started. I've started by playing the guitar when I was a kid. I think I was like 6-7 years old, and I've entered. In college, I've started listening to electronic music. I was all about uplifting trance, so I was more into the Armada side of things, Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, all these names. And then when I came to France, I went to this nightclub, and it was, I think it was, wait a second. I forgot the name of the project. Anyways, it was progressive, I think. Anyways, it was a psytrance party, and I loved it so much that I thought to myself, okay, I want to make this. And I've been doing like music on FL Studio, by the way, since like a couple of years before this like gig, and I loved psytrance so much. So I was like, okay, I'm going to stop making uplifting stuff, and I'll just go into the psychedelic side of things. And and since I think it was 2014 or something, since I've been doing it, as psytrance. And in between, I've switched from FL to Ableton, and here we are today making tutorials on YouTube.
So that club that you first experienced psytrance at, is that club still around? Have you ever played a gig there? I've played a couple of gigs there. It's still around, and like almost like before COVID, it was like almost once in a month we go there, because there's like this group of friends called Outrance that organize all of the psytrance parties here in Lyon. Not all of them, but like the best ones. So like we always hang there, and just to say I still go there, but I've played there like a couple of times, and it's always a good experience
about this.
Like playing at the place which you first kind of fell in love with the genre. You kind of like, it's almost that feeling of like passing on to the next generation of people that are going to fall in love with the genre, and then the next generation. It's like almost evolution in a sense, I guess.
Yeah, I was there 3,000 years ago.
Exactly.
Anyways,
cool.
So that's my background in a nutshell.
And is the scene in France pretty big? Are there like quite a few clubs and festivals and stuff that happen there? Or, well, I guess maybe not now, but I mean, like in a good year. Mm-hmm. Or do you find yourself traveling around Europe mostly for the bigger festivals?
Actually, I don't know why I'm exposing this, over the internet, but I've never really been to one of these big festivals, even though there's the biggest French one called Adra that happens like, it's always a couple of hours of drive from my place. But yeah, I've never been there. I've always been into like underground raves and clubs. But yeah, anyways, the scene in here, actually, I'm lucky to live in the region in France where it's all about psytrance. Well, not all about, but like the psytrance scene is really strong in here. So there's, you always have a lot of options between, illegal raves. There's a lot of them between, the legal organized stuff and clubbing. It's, now Lyon is like getting back on its feet, and there's actually there's a small city like an hour drive called Grenoble, where you have ADN Music. I don't know if you've heard of them, and like they make really and there's also the ADRA, the organizers of the big festival. They're there, and there's always gigs in Grenoble. Psytrance. So yeah, it's mostly driving around the region than really the whole France thing, and as I've never been to the big festivals, I've never really traveled there. But yeah, this year I'm going to make a change. Promise.
I think you'll really enjoy it, man. For me, I prefer the kind of the outdoor experience. I enjoy playing at clubs and stuff, but I always found that the outdoor experience was just completely different. The sound just sounds so much better because there's kind of no reverb. Do you know what I mean? There's no stuff for the sound to bounce off. So the sound is just amazing, and I'm sure you will love it.
Yeah, like I mean, like as I told you, I really love like these when you're like why I was talking about the legal raves and stuff, because it's always much fun as you mentioned. I've just wanted to say I've never been to the big stuff, but playing in the forest. Playing in a forest is way funnier than playing between four walls. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but when there's this one thing I love about clubs is that if there's something bothering me, I can just call an Uber and get back home. I don't have to wait till I'll come down and be ready to drive again. Because you'll probably drink way too much anyways.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Like, sometimes just being able to quickly just go home and sleep is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm just not a big fan of sleeping in my on my driver's seat, because you're always in the.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So a question that I try to ask everybody that I'm getting on these little podcasty things that I do is, what would you say is the definition of creativity?
I'm just trying to find a way to say it without just taking 10 hours to make it crazy.
It's fine. Take your time.
Yeah. It's like, these are the times where I actually start translating from Arabic, into English, and I'm like, fuck.
Oh, so is your mother tongue, you grew up, so your mother tongue is Arabic. So when you speak English, do you think in like Arabic terms? Like when you're like thinking about, okay, I'm making music, does the words pop in your head in English or in Arabic? I'm always super interested to hear people's experiences that aren't, for example, like an English speaker doing things that I would like, for example, think like quantize or... It's a random question.
It's actually most of the time I'm thinking in English because I've learned making music production in English.
I guess, yeah.
But like, for example, and like now you've just asked me about creativity, and my head was like going Arabic, English. So yeah, it's sometimes like my own Google Translate just overclocks my brain, and you just go. Anyways, getting back to creativity, definition of creativity, like it's not really. I don't know if I can say its definition, but like.
I guess there's no right or wrong answer. Anyways, it's like, what for you? What does the word mean?
Being able to create something beautiful or interesting out of something really basic, if that makes sense. Like, like being pretty limited, and yet getting something really beautiful out of it. Like, it's like everyone will look at this thing in your hand and be like, "Hey, Dash, just throw it away," and you will be able to make something really awesome out of it. This is how I define creativity. I hope I made sense. It's like,
yeah, you definitely made sense, and it's so weird because it's every time I ask the question, it's almost like the answer is the same, but the words are different. It's always about a very similar idea of like taking something that's maybe mundane and creating something that's pleasing out of it, or I think the last example was bringing life to something that's was seemingly didn't have it before, or something like that. And I think it's always interesting to see different people's takes on something that's kind of like the answer always kind of seems to be quite universal. If you had to be sent to a desert island with a laptop where you could choose only 5 plugins to be on that laptop, and you were then to make music for the rest of your life with only those 5 plugins, what would they be?
Do I have the stock plugins of a DAW or not?
Yeah, okay, so you could have like a DAW and all of the stock plugins that they come with. So it would be like you wouldn't need to worry about compressors and delays and that kind of thing.
Okay, perfect. Then in this case, I would definitely take pigments as a synthesizer. I would take serum, that's for sure. I would take infiltrator with me. I'm just thinking about my Swiss knife things. Okay, wait a second. There will be okay, I said pigment serum, infiltrator. I would add okay, this is a tricky one because there's a lot of stuff that I can use, like I would have said silo, but I have pigments, so I have granular synthesis basically. I know it's not the same, but the one in pigments is pretty powerful. Infiltrator, you can't just it's infiltrator. I would add the Valhalla delay because you can really do some awesome stuff with it. So you have so now I have 4, and the 5th one. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, man, it's really hard to like. Yeah. Okay. So I have these ones, and okay. No. Let's remake the list because I forgot about one important plugin. Okay. So we have pigments. We have serum. Actually, serum is just because the wavetable editor is just, I love it. So pigments, serum, infiltrator, black hole is my favorite reverb, and Triad from I forgot the name, Unfiltered Audio. Triad.
Yes, I've been meaning to try that one.
I've okay, here's the thing. I've bought it because I couldn't afford Saturn for the Fab Filter Saturn. And I've tried to make a bass line with it, to do this whole psi multiband distortion thing with it, and it worked really, really nice. I have a friend who has Saturn. I've compared the results, and I was like, okay, you can't really tell the difference, so that's nice. I bought it. It was still Saturn 1. There wasn't Saturn 2, so now it's not the same thing. But anyways, and then when I've started just playing with it, I was like, wow, this, like, you have a huge, endless sea of possibilities because, you're splitting the bands and you're adding effects on them. So, when I've started using it, not just to make bass lines, this is where I was like, oh my God, you can just do awesome stuff with it. So yeah, that definitely will be with me.
Have you used multipass much at all? The kilohertz multipass?
Nope. I've wanted to try. I've been meaning to try it for a while, but I just didn't do it for now. Like I have other stuff I'm gazzing about before getting to multipass.
Yeah, and you've got your multiband stuff sorted already with a Triad, so like I see why.
Yeah, I've even tried the one that comes with cable guys, but I didn't stop testing it. I didn't finish my testings on it, so I can't really say everything, but it looks really promising. I mean, as a cheap alternative to doing the whole multiband splitting thing.
Oh, that's interesting. I hope you do a video on that.
Yeah, actually,
if you do come like to a conclusion.
Yeah, exactly. I would do it. I promise. But these would be the 5 plugins I would take with me. And man, Black Hole is like, just speaking of a favorite reverb, it's it just has something to it. I don't know what it is, but it's just like, unlike any other plugin, it's extremely warm. It's dark and it's warm, and it just suits, at least what I'm, at least for me, it just suits what I'm doing. Like sometimes I have this Behringer Model D, and sometimes I would just run it through Black Hole and just trip my ass off doing just random melodies and Black Hole, and just to clear out my head, that's Black Hole for me. I hope it made sense, because sometimes you just make music for you, and yeah.
No, totally. Like one of my favorite things to do is to create like a generative patch on the modular synth, and then open up any reverb, and then just put it on full wet, and then just, if I'm like typing something, or if I'm doing any kind of admin work or anything like that, and I'm looking for ambient music, I'll generally just make it with the modular synth and a reverb, or any of the synths running through a full wet on a reverb, and it generally does the trick. It's cool because it's like always different, once you've heard something too many times, I guess as a music producer, you start analyzing it and it becomes a bit annoying. So having something generated completely random is good.
Yeah, exactly, man. So you telling me this is just so good, because right now I'm sure I'm not the only one who likes making generative music. I just do it on VCV because I promised myself I won't go into the modular Black Hole. So yeah, I sometimes do kind of the same, but it's just on VCV rack, and just do some generative stuff and then leave it running, and like you will do your own live.
Even the MicroFreak, I've figured out recently, I'm not sure if it's something that they've added in one of the more recent updates, but you can modulate the type, the oscillator type. So you can set, for example, a random modulation to change between wavetable, FM, speech mode, and all of that stuff. So that means you could like have a sound that changes to a completely different patch randomly. And so what I've started doing also is just creating generative patches with a random on the type, playing in an arpeggiator or something, and then just putting a reverb on it, and it does some really good patches that way.
I never knew about this, actually. I've never tried changing the oscillator type, like randomly on it. Nice. I never knew about it.
So in
like 2 years I
don't know if you know the module that the MicroFreak is based on is called the Mutable Instruments Platts.
Yeah.
And
I've never played with it, but yeah, I've read the manual. And
you're aware of it. Okay.
It, yeah.
So one of my favorite things about that was the fact that you could modulate the different models. So that means you could have one voice that switches from a bass drum to a snare drum to a hi-hat, or FM to a speech sound. So you could do like a delay llama, which then turns into an FM grid, which then turns into a saw wave lead. And you could modulate between those. And I always said, I wish they would add this to the MicroFreak. And then while I was doing a live stream using V4, somebody chirped into the chat and said, do you know that they've added the ability to modulate the type? And that was like, okay.
Game changer, man.
Yeah. Such an awesome little box.
Oh, okay. Well, I have to try it out. I have to admit I got like the MicroFreak, I think a couple of years ago, like when they've released it. I got all hyped about it, and then for like a year and a half, I didn't really use it. It was really collecting dust, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to sell it. And then when I've decided to sell it, I thought to myself, before selling it, it would be really nice to play with it. And this is where I've actually started discovering what the synthesizer is capable of doing, actually. And it's like as you said, it's an awesome little box. Too bad it doesn't have onboard effects, because sometimes, as we mentioned in the beginning, it's really good for creativity. But sometimes you're just like, man, I just need something in here that would make it awesome. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm like getting out of subject.
No, please. Let's get out of subject. Let's talk.
All I wanted to say about the MicroFreak is that this awesome little box. Needs some onboard effects. Too bad it doesn't have it. And this awesome little filter they've added to it. I think it's like most of the patches I've made with it, it's really a combination between the oscillator and the filter, and like when it's before it starts self-resonating, the filter, you can just make awesome stuff with it.
If you were to give yourself some advice when you were first, like if you were to go back in time to when you were first starting to get into music production, what advice would you give yourself back then?
Read the fucking manual. Seriously.
Oh, I still need to learn to do that.
Yeah, man, I have to be honest with you. I've learned a lot from you and a lot from manuals. Like there's hidden gems in manuals. And I'm not talking about hardware manuals. I'm talking about even the manuals of software stuff. You know, like the manual of Pigments is full of hidden stuff. The manual of MicroFreak, by the way, is full of them too. And yeah, anyways, read the fucking manual and try not to use presets. I think I'm not against presets, please don't get me wrong. I just used presets so much that I think I've wasted sometimes. I've wasted a lot of time running through presets instead of just trying at least to understand what's going on behind this preset so I can mangle it to make the sound I need. If that, you know, I hope it made sense. But again, I'm not against presets. I sell them.
No, I agree. I think, you know, once you learn how to create a sound from scratch, then the ability to open up anybody's preset and make it your own becomes so much easier. I think a lot of the time as music creators, when we first get into it and we're looking for presets, we kind of lack the ability to add movement in the way that we want, maybe like modulate the filter or these kinds of things. So often I see when people start, they kind of load presets and then it's about adding a filter onto the end of the chain and then effects and that kind of thing onto the end of the chain, rather than learning how the sound is actually created inside the plugin itself, which I think is such a fundamental thing to be able to, for example, open a preset and remove the effects, change the filter, and now you've got something that's completely different, or change the modulations and that kind of stuff to be able to make something your own, or add movement that's going to suit the track, or rhythms and that kind of thing.
Yeah, pretty much like I mean, at least just look at how the modulations, you know, are routed in that particular like preset, or try to replicate it or something. Because yeah, I mean, like I was so bad in this that I didn't even change the delay settings in those presets I used to use. So it was like, you know, my first tracks were like a chaos, man. So yeah, that's why I think, yeah, this reading the manual and try to make your own presets. Like you don't have to make big presets, but you know, you got my idea.
Yeah, so that was something interesting you said about the Arturia manuals. I think there's a few companies where I actually do go in and read the manuals, but because there's those little tasty nuggets about patch ideas, Yuhi is one of them. A lot of the Yuhi stuff, there's some really cool little patch ideas and that kind of thing in the manual, which I think that's generally why I read those manuals. Arturia as well, they put in a lot of those little tasty nuggets. The MicroFreak manual was very eye-opening for me as well.
Yeah. There was this manual by Dave Smith that I really loved. I have this synthesizer called the Mofo. I don't know why he called it the Mofo. Anyways, he wanted to say monophonic synthesizer anyways, but you know, our twisted minds think of the insult. Anyways, yeah, it's one of these manuals that I read and it like instantly gave me a lot of ideas. It was really, yeah, as you said, mind opening. You know, so yeah, since yeah, reading the manual is pretty important. Do it.
So do you have any hobbies like outside of music production? Have you taken on skateboarding now that it's your namesake?
No. No, I love my fats, man. Doing sports isn't for me. Actually, I got recently into my last year my virus broke, and I wanted to repair it, but the access service, they just told me like literally, yeah, it's an old hardware, and we might not be able to repair it. Maybe get a new one, So I thought to myself, okay, fuck it. I'm going to start learning about electronics and maybe to try to repair it. So mainly that's my other hobby right now. It's like, yeah, getting into these electronic kind of stuff and trying to understand how they work. I've made like a really simple MIDI controller with an Arduino. And right now I'm trying to understand how I can make it run as a clock, like a Eurorack clock, just to get everything in sync. Why I just want to do it. There's no specific reason behind it, and yeah, mainly that's the other stuff I do beside music, actually.
I think that's amazing. I'm also like super into electronics, but I won't say I'm like very good at it, but I really enjoy just tinkering and stuff like that. I'm surprised you haven't actually got into modular, because there's so many DIY resources out there to create your own. I mean, you spoke about the Arduino MIDI controller. I literally did the same thing, and I made a little MIDI controller, and then I started getting into modular, and I broke the thing apart, took the Arduino out, and then created a little sequencer. I don't know if you've seen my modular sets, but that little white thing in the bottom left, I've with a planet on it that I've written orbital, that like circular sequencer, that's based on an Arduino, and I got all the circuits and everything, I think from Look Mum No Computer, from his YouTube channel. So yeah, nice. You can actually make quite a few very good Eurorack stuff using Arduinos, Teensies, the Ornament and Crime modules. Like my favorite module at the moment is based on a Teensy chip, which I think is very similar to Arduinos.
Oh, really?
And you can DIY it yourself very easily.
Yeah, the Teensy stuff is more like an actual computer, while the Arduino is more of a like really limited microcontroller. Like I think in the Teensy, if I'm not mistaken, you really have like a RAM, a processor, and storage. While in an Arduino, everything is actually made in the same chip. So yeah, it's pretty limited. Anyways, yeah, actually, I'm not into modular because I don't think it's just the right time to do it, especially that I have VCV rack. It's just not the right time. And like I don't want to get into something that like I've seen a couple of friends of mine when they got into modular, they're like, all of their lives right now is modular, and I can't do it. But anyways, getting back to the projects, yes, I'm really into these kind of projects, and it's mainly just to either just learn how to do it because it's interesting. Like just typing the code for the clock is just something that excites me again. Like just like a limited synthesizer, and I would like to also just add stuff my neutron is lacking. Like one of the first projects I've tried, or like I've prototyped, was a multiple, because I think it doesn't have enough mults, so yeah, I've created one, and so on. So that's the whole idea behind this stuff. But I'm pretty
I'm going to send you some links, because there's this other YouTuber called Synth DIY guy, and he does these things he calls patch pals, I think, which are like little passive components which you can use to add functionality to, for example, Euroracks or semi-modular synths. And he's got this one which is like a distortion, and he's created it out of a passive thing. It's really cool stuff, and there's little attenuators and all sorts of mults, attenuators, switches. So I don't know if you've seen also my like switch box. I've got like a mult switch box thing that I use in my performances that basically just routes the signals around my Eurorack. That whole idea was based on little components that came from his little series of videos. But he also does a lot of like DIY stuff, like how to make active mults and all sorts of things like that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think even for just adding functionality to semi-modular synths, like you said, to like a neutron or something like that, is, you know, that's where the modular obsession starts, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. But as I said, I'm trying not to go really deep in there, you know, like not right now. But yeah, getting back to the modular DIY guy, I've seen some of his videos, and actually there's this guy, I don't know if you know him, called Moritz Klein.
The name rings a bell.
He makes like literally tutorials about creating a self-resonating Moog style filter, for example. It's one of the projects he showed, and it's he explains things in a, like, for noobs like me, it's a really nice way to explain it. Like you'll eventually understand everything. So I'll send you a link to one of his videos or to his channel, and you can.
I'll put links to everything we speak about in the description of the video when I do post it, so everyone else can follow along.
Yeah, and there's also, speaking of like good resources for anyone who wants to go DIY, there's this subreddit on Reddit. By the way, I love Reddit, called Synth DIY, and there's a lot of amazing resources over there, like for almost anything you would like to do. So yeah, I highly suggest going to, checking that subreddit out too. And I can maybe send you a link right away.
Anything that you're working on right now, if you've got something coming up that you're wanting to promote. I know that you recently just launched your Serum pack, which was was it the 5K subscribers? Am I right? Yes. The 5K subscribers pack for Serum, which had some really, really good sounds in that. I grabbed that as well. Do you have anything else that you're working on or that you want to promote?
Go buy my stuff. No, I'm actually, right now I'm finishing a preset pack for the MicroFreak. So I think, I won't say much. It's not because I don't want to share stuff with people. It's just because right now I'm so unorganized that just all of my projects are delayed. So that's why if I want to promote something, right now I would promote the MicroFreak bank, which is coming really soon. Like I think in the beginning of December, and I'll just stay here because like I just don't want to talk about projects and then I'll maybe drop them off, or I'll just finish them later on, and it'll be not cool from my side of things, just to talk about them like so. So yeah, the MicroFreak, it's coming pretty soon. I have this
curse where like if I mention something before it's done, it doesn't get done. Like, I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but like for me, it's like, so I try just like keep it zipped until it's out, because the moment I say something, then I start doubting. I think it's about me doubting, like, is it going to be good enough because I've hyped it up now? And then you kind of put it off and put it off and put it off. It's a weird thing. Yeah,
exactly. So it's actually, a secondary reason why I don't want to talk about all the projects that I'm working on. But yeah, the MicroFreak is almost done, so I think I won't jinx it, if I talk about it right now.
So you got a Gumroad store. What so what other preset packs you've got there? You got the Serum one. What other sort of stuff do you do there? Do you have templates and that kind of thing?
Nope. I actually don't believe in templates. That's why I don't sell them. I think
I agree.
Like I don't mind people selling templates. I don't mind people buying them, but it's something against my way of thinking. So I won't. So I don't make them. I would like, instead of that, I would just say, you know what, go buy your favorite track on Beatport or Bandcamp, whatever, put it in your DAW and try to literally replicate it, instead of just buying a template. That's what I'm trying to say. On my Gumroad, I have a couple of preset packs of pigments. Again, it's one of my favorite synthesizer. I have one for Vital, one for Silent One, and the new Serum one that I just launched like a month ago or something. New products are coming. I won't say anything right now, as we've talked about.
I think it's pretty interesting that you said, like, a lot of the stuff that you've said today kind of like resonates with me. I think that I don't know if I'm out of line saying this, but I feel like our minds think in very similar ways, and I can kind of see that when you're creating sounds as well. You've also got a bit of a kind of happy accident style going on, where you're very inspired by the randomness of things. I don't know if that resonates with you at all, or if you can speak on that.
It happened with me, actually. Like, I totally agree. First of all, I've learned a lot of stuff with happy accidents, and I've, like, how to say it? I just want to say, yeah, I totally agree. And sometimes the best sounds I make are happy accidents. Like, it happened a lot of time when I was live streaming, and like for a second I'm just like, this is a happy accident. I didn't want to make this at all, but it's here and it sounds fucking good. So yeah, we'll keep it. I totally agree. It's how to say it, like, I don't want to rephrase what you've just said, so that's why I don't know what to say exactly. I just totally agree, man.
Well, I think it's important for people like outside of the kind of world of professional musicians or whatever we call ourselves, that see that a lot of the time it's not this whole technical process that's like this mathematical scientific genius thing behind it. Like, we're kind of just humans messing around with some things, banging some rocks together, and we just, if you do it enough, you kind of get these good results, and you learn what types of rocks sound best when you bang them together and that kind of thing. And I think that's the important thing, is for more people to see that a lot of the creative process is about just doing, stop like overthinking things, stop getting too technical with things, is just try the thing, do something different and see what happens. And it's in those moments when you really like get these kind of happy accidents, I guess.
Man, I totally agree. Actually, I mean, like, this is how I've discovered a lot of stuff that I made tutorials about, It's like you're just throwing some random stuff. As you said, it's hitting two rocks together and like, oh, that sounds good. And yeah, basically that's what I was doing. This is how I discovered that the Model D is, in my opinion, one of the best synthesizers to make FM sounds on it, with all the respects to the virus, but the Model D just does better. And, it was a happy accident. I was like, whoa. So yeah, again, I don't want to mirror what you just said. It's I totally agree, and I think it's pretty important. Just open, I don't know, your favorite synthesizer, throw random modulations, and by random I don't mean sample and hold. I mean just, I don't know, put an LFO on the pitch and another one on whatever, and see what it sounds like, and maybe you will just make the new psychedelic sound everyone will try to replicate, like we do with the grain table for the virus.
Exactly. Yeah. I bet that was also like when that was originally first became popular, whoever did it first, I bet for them it was a happy accident, and then other people heard it, they were like, oh, that's good. And now that the happy accident has now become a very technical process of people trying to recreate the sound. But if everybody's just going for this happy accident idea, that's when everything will sound really unique and I think really, really cool. No, I'm not saying like don't go out and try to recreate sounds from your favorite people, because I mean that's another thing that I say you should do all the time. But there's two different types of production. I think there's that really intense creativity where you have to just go for the happy accidents, and then there's the technical productivity where you're kind of going for finishing the track. And I think it's important for me, at least, I go for those creative moments when I'm kind of building presets and building patches, and I don't really have a constraint as to now I need to finish the track. But then using another track as a reference is a really good idea to get the track done, because it's a good way of being able to say like, okay, this sounds good, move on, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, like if it works for you, I mean, if it works for you, if this track vibes something into you or resonates in your head or whatever you want to call it, you know, you love that track, then why just trying to make the same thing, you know? If it works for you, then yeah, why not just do it? And yeah, I totally agree with what you've just said about having these two, let's say, faces, you know, or masks. Because like, here's how I normally do it. When I start making a track, it's always about random sound designs. And please don't take random as sample and hold. You know, I just sound design stuff and, yeah, as you said, create presets. And then when you're finishing the track, this is where, as you said, it gets technical. And this is actually the phase where I get about replicating sounds, because, you know, you're hearing your track and, you know, you want to finish it and you're like, oh, maybe this, you know, I don't know, Jump Street made this sound that I really love. Let's try to replicate it. And yeah, you know, you finish your track afterwards, but you know, you get my point. So yeah, totally agree with your approach, man.
Oh yes. Now that you mention that, like there was something also that I discovered with the MicroFreak filter is one of my favorite things to do is resonance on full and sample and hold random onto the filter, but then process it with a bit crusher and a distortion. And it almost like the kind of like, you know, often when you turn resonance on full on a synth, it doesn't sound good. But it's almost like once you bit crush it and distort it, it kind of like puts it into, it almost like quantizes it. So it kind of sounds musical to a sense. It's still out of tune, but it's like, it's almost like these little plucks have become like percussive in a sense. I don't know. So now I've kind of created this a snap heap preset, which is bit crusher, distortion, delay, and a reverb. And every time I plug the MicroFreak in, I just open that up, and then I just play with like the bit crusher and stuff. And I think that's really cool. That's been like my little technique over the past few weeks, playing with the.
It's actually pretty interesting because. Here's where we're really different. Here's the thing. I basically have the same thing, you know. I mean, like an effect track ready for the MicroFreak, but mine is more about silo, infiltrator, and the I forgot the name, crystallizer from South Noise. And normally I process it with one of these three plugins or a combination of these three plugins, and there's always black hole at the end, but that's a different story. And I feel the MicroFreak is an amazing synthesizer to make actually textures. I don't know, what do you think about that? But yeah, I feel especially when you mix it with like granular effects like silo and crystallizer, it just makes these like weird kind of foresty. Even though I don't make forest, you know, I think it's just too dark for me. I'm a C major happy guy, you know. But yeah, I think it just makes like really nice. They mix well, you know, these two things. I mean, the MicroFreak and the granular effects mix really, really well together. But yeah, I'm actually like, after this conversation, I'm going to turn on my MicroFreak and try a bit crusher and a distortion over it and see what I can do with it, you know.
Yeah, man, it creates a really nice like. Funny actually. it reminds me, I don't know if you remember Outer Signal. I think they're a French group as well from 3D Visions. In early like 2008, 2009. That was when I was first kind of getting into psytrance. They were really popular at the time, and they used a lot of BitCrush on their leads. So a lot of my main leads, I'm kind of going for a similar kind of sound to them. Digital Talk and Outer Signal were some of my favorites back then. And they used a lot of this kind of BitCrusher distortion almost as like a filter on the lead. So it's like I'm using the MicroFreak to create random tones, which I then BitCrush, and then sweeping the BitCrush almost creates like a filter. Does that make sense?
It does, actually. No, it really does. I need to try it out. Like in my head, it's like I totally get the idea. I just want to go and try it out and see how it'll sound.
So you want to know something crazy about BitCrush and sample and hold? Do you know a BitCrush is just sample and hold really quickly? So if you take a sample and hold oscillate like in analog, and you clock it at audio rate, and then you just slow down the audio rate clock, the input that's running into the sample and hold gets BitCrushed. It's interesting, eh?
Yeah, it is.
Because essentially what audio is just sampling an input and sending it to the output at audio rate at 44.1. But with a sample and hold, if you just slow down that sample rate to, for example, 10 kilohertz, then you've got a 10 kilohertz BitCrush.
Good. Yeah, it makes total sense, man.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's amazing how in audio so many things are actually just made out of these very simple singular components, and they're just kind of arranged in different ways with different interfaces. And
wow, I'm sorry, you just blew my mind, man. Yeah, that's
cool. I'm glad. A nice little nugget to end off with.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, here's another one. The Moog subharmonica. You know, the last Moog they made. So it's basically creating, subharmonics out of your signal. I've never really, I'm not into these small Moog boutique things. So I'm sorry for everyone who owns them. I don't know them at all. I just know what it does. And why I'm talking about it, because the principle behind it is actually you take your signal and you go it through a clock divider, and you will get all of these subharmonics out of it. And yeah, I thought this is really cool to share. Like you just shared with me, the sample and hold, because I've tried it with VCV rack and I got these subs out of my signal, and I think it's amazing. Just how with simple things you can make these awesome sounds.
But I'm sure I can replicate something actually, using the additive, maybe like 3 oscillators in Vital, one of them the bottom few harmonics, one of them the middle harmonics, and the other just the top ones, sequence them differently. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah, true. Actually, I've, when I saw the subharmonicon, sometimes you just see a synthesizer and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's like, doesn't ring a bell. So the whole idea behind it doesn't really ring a lot of bells for me, if that makes sense. But I just found it really awesome to just try to, understand how it works and, replicate it, and then maybe see,